Hello and welcome to the Radical Podcast, inspired by the essence of the word radical, proceeding from the root. We explore the roots of metaphysical wisdom.
This season is all about divination, tarot, and the power held within our intuition. This is The Radical with Nicole and Christina, the two metaphysical girls in the material world. Hello and welcome to The Radical. I'm Nicole.
And this is Christina.
Today we're talking about the Kabbalah or Kabbalah. This is a brand new topic for me.
And me.
I had a lot of misconceptions about the Kabbalah, and I'm going to address some of those here in the beginning. Christina's going to take us through some broader strokes, some history, and then we'll get a little bit more specific and talk about the Kabbalah in terms of tarot and astrology. I did make a chart, and I am just going to say, if you don't follow us on Substack yet, I really recommend it because the Substack articles have turned into sort of like a companion piece for the podcast, and they give visuals and charts. So the
And
chart,
that's where the card comparison pictures are posted.
yes. And anytime I make a chart, I post it there.
I printed out your chart and I'm putting it in my workbook. It's a fantastic chart, listeners. Go find it. It's really good.
And we also post our messages from the universe there. So it's kind of a one-stop shop for everything. The Radical Podcast. And today's messages are from a new deck that I bought at a really amazing store in Calgary. It's called the Oracle of Pluto. And this deck approaches shadow work in such a way where the illustrations are of like shadow puppets that you make with your hands. So it takes the scary out of shadow work. All right. So getting into the Kabbalah, I read a fantastic book. It is called The Chicken Kabbalah of Rabbi Lamad Ben Clifford. The author is Lon Milo Duquette. And I will just say transparently that ChatGPT recommended this book to me. And I was like, what is the chicken Kabbalah? And I was really on the fence about ordering this book, and I went for it. The reviews talk about it being kind of funny and lighthearted, which were words and tones that I didn't expect to be associated with the Kabbalah or the study of Kabbalah. So I was very intrigued, and I'm really glad that I went for it and ordered this book. In the beginning, sort of one of the dedication pages, the author says that this book has been written expressly for dilettantes. And I had to look that word up. It is a person who cultivates an area of interest, such as the arts, without real commitment or knowledge. And, you know, he does write this book with a very kind of lighthearted tone, but you can tell that he's knowledgeable and knows what he's talking about, but he wants to get the information out there and make it accessible. And so I think that's what that dedication is trying to convey, that we want to talk about the Kabbalah, but maybe we're not going to be serious Orthodox students, and that's still okay. And that kind of broke down a lot of walls for me because I was like, oh my gosh, this feels like a very serious subject, and I don't want to, like, am I allowed to dabble with this information? I also thought the Kabbalah was a book, and that's not the case. There are, however, foundational texts, and one of those foundational texts is called the Sefer Yetzirah. And if I'm pronouncing these words incorrectly or not perfectly, I do apologize. I am doing kind of my best and looking to Google. But this foundational text, introduces the concepts of two things: the 10 Sephra, or the 10 emanations, which develop into the tree of life. These are those 10 circles that we see on the tree of life. And the second concept it goes into is the story of the creation of the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet. The Kabbalah is not necessarily a belief system. And this is quoting the author of the book I read, Mr. Duquette. He says, some people think that because the Kabbalah seems to be based on the Bible, that it must be reserved for Jews or Christians, and therefore it has no place in neo-pagan or New Age thought. Such is not the case. The Kabbalah is not a belief system, it's a way of looking at things. And a little bit further down, I have some notes on the quote-unquote scope of work pertaining to what the author has called Kabbalistic dabblers. So sort of the neo-pagan and New Age thought group of people. And why all the spelling variations? In Hebrew, the root letters of the word Kabbalah are Qoph, Q, Bet, B, and Lamad, L. Many Jewish proponents prefer to treat the Q as a K and a double B when rendering the word into English letters. That's how we get the spelling of Kabbalah with a K, the Kabbalah. Christian students spell Kabbalah with a C, so we get Cabala. And then ceremonial magicians spell it Kabbalah with a Q. We get Qabalah. For our purposes on this podcast, we should use the spelling of Kabbalah with a Q because we fall into sort of those Kabbalistic dabblers. To quote Mr. Duquette again, he says, we are disciples of the non-traditional Kabbalah rather than of the Orthodox Hebrew Qabalah community. And in that sentence, non-traditional Kabbalah is with a Q, and then Orthodox Hebrew Kabbalah is spelled with a K. He goes on to say, whether or not we choose to embrace any of the religious aspects is what separates us from our Orthodox brothers and sisters. Included in this broad band of Kabbalistic dabblers are mathematicians, physicists, psychologists, entertainers, as well as students and practitioners of the Western traditions of esoteric Freemasonry, tarot, ceremonial magic, astrology, and alchemy. In particular to those who are interested in the work of the Golden Dawn. So, bingo. I read that and I was like, that's me. And what this book explains is how the Kabbalah, or why the Kabbalah, is of interest to such dabblers. There is no argument among the well-informed that the Hebrew Qabalah throbs at the very heart of the Western mystery tradition. Of all these disciplines, the tarot is the most perfect representation of Kabbalistic fundamentals. and is the common denominator between the various systems. Whether we realize it or not, when we work with the tarot, we are working with the Kabbalah. And he kind of emphasizes this idea again by explaining whether we consciously recognize them or not. These are archetypal images that we share with every other human being on the planet. And the Kabbalah is the glue that holds them all together. So, I wanted to start off by giving a sense of why we're even talking about this today and how it fits in to our season of tarot. And now Christina has some broader info, some history for us. I'm excited to learn.
Whenever I have a topic that feels too big to get a hold of, I often start my research with defining the 5 W's. What, when, where, why, and who. I used this as an outline to get started so that I can organize my thoughts on this massive topic. And again, I want to say the same thing that Nicole said. I'm doing my best with the pronunciation of the terms. And if I mispronounce anything, I am sorry. I'm doing my best. I listened to some lecturers on YouTube trying to get a good sense for the flow of the terms, but we'll see how they come out. But what is Kabbalah? It's an esoteric method, it's a discipline, and it's a school of thought within Judaism. The Hebrew word Kabbalah means to receive or tradition, and it refers to a body of received mystical teachings. Central Kabbalistic concepts include the Ein Sof, which is the infinite and unknowable essence of God. Another concept is the 10 Serot. That is the tree of life, the 10 spheres in that shape of the tree of life. And those are the attributes or emanations through which God created and interacts with the universe and therefore us. There are 4 worlds, a descending chain of spiritual realms that emanated from the Ein Sof and from the basis of all existence. And you may also, in your own studies or in your encounters with Kabbalah, know that there's also 4 levels that the study of the ancient Hebrew texts follow. There's the literal, the elusive, allegorical, and mystical. Another core concept of Kabbalistic or the Kabbalah is tikkun, and that's the process of cosmic repair. And this is a more modern concept, particularly from Isaac Lurian. It's from the Lurianic system, and it talks about how damage happened during the creation of our universe, but we as humans have the ability through our actions to repair the damage. There's many characters and many historical figures and authors in the second W, the who developed Kabbalah, and it's developed over many centuries by Jewish mystics. I'm just going to talk about 3 specific notes here in time frames. I'm not going to go through all of the names. That is a fascinating topic. Ancient roots. The tradition traces to the roots to biblical accounts of divine visions, and that's of the Talmudic period. And that's the 1st to the 6th century CE. It's the very first beginnings of the Kabbalah. During medieval times, medieval development, the movement began to flourish in the 12th and 13th century in France and Spain. And the key to this era was the Zohar, and that is a combined massive, it's the works of one author or multiple authors, but it's one of the texts that are key to Kabbalistic study. And one person who is whose name goes with the Zohar is Moses de Leon, in the late 13th century. Modern Kabbalah and the new wave of Kabbalah emerged in the 16th century Ottoman Palestine, most notably through Isaac Luria. Another two concepts from that time frame are the ideas of Tzimtzum, and that's divine contraction, and Tikkun, correction or repair. Those profoundly influenced Jewish thought and also the Hasidic movement. So we say recent, but it's not. I mean, it still was in the 16th century when these concepts were being developed and spread. And I touched on time frame just to kind of give us an idea of how many centuries of work and people's interpretations and people's accumulating this information and interpreting it. When and where was Kabbalah developed? Well, early forms of Jewish mysticism appeared as early as the 1st century CE, like I just mentioned. The specific historical tradition, known as Kabbalah, emerged in the medieval period. The first foundational text, Sefer HaBahir, appeared in 12th century Provence, France, and the influential Zohar, which I just mentioned, appeared later, 13th century Spain. So southern parts of Europe. Kabbalah has two primary geographic regions. Again, medieval Europe, southern France, and Spain in the 12th and 13th centuries. Another area is the Ottoman Palestine that was following the expulsion of the Jews from Spain in 1492. And that Ottoman Palestine became the center of Kabbalistic study in the city of Safed in Galilee. And that is where Isaac Luria developed modern Kabbalistic thought. So that's some big, broad concepts there. And just thinking about the history and how it begins to come down to us.
And it just popped in my head. It may be in your notes further down, but our friend Aleister Crowley wrote a book about the Kabbalah and the tarot. So really widespread geographically and over the centuries. It's endured like astrology and tarot and all these practices that this podcast is all about.
But
I did want to.
You could feel the cross-pollination of the scholars and the mystics and the people who are studying alchemy and the metaphysical concepts. And then, the tarot cards. And then we started having more trade and we had more communication with other parts and other, academic centers in the world, all happening at this time. And we did the talk about the tarot cards coming up through the Silk Road, coming up out of the east into the west along the southern parts of Europe. And that is also where these types of intellectual centers were talking about these metaphysical concepts.
And if I think back to, I think it was our final episode of season 1 where we were talking about sort of like recapping what we learned about astrology. I was talking about what I learned from one of Pam Gregory's books, and this is like the content of the mystery schools that were so common in, just the mystery schools.
Yep. This was one of the one of the electives that you could take at that college.
I did want to mention that the book that I read, The Chicken Qabbalah, in the book, he does explain how the book got its title. I am not going to spoil the answer because it's a really great chapter that is like one of those it's like a metaphor. It's like a teaching metaphor. So I just wanted to say that there is a reason and a good reason why
Mm.
the book has its name. But I am going to return to some more points from this book. Mr. Duquette says that Kabbalistic dabblers sort of use the Kabbalah in a narrow manner. He says the scope of their work is relatively narrow.
Mm.
And he goes on to explain what that means and what pieces of the Kabbalah typically the dabblers utilize. The first is the meanings and the numerical equivalents of the letters of the Hebrew alphabet. So there's 22 letters, and there's an English equivalent for the letter and a numerical value, and also a meaning of the letter. And I'll give an example in a moment, but this is truly one of the foundational elements of the Kabbalah is the Hebrew alphabet and these meanings and enumerations. The second bit that falls within the scope of work of Kabbalistic dabblers is the schematic diagram known as the Tree of Life. He also includes the cube of space, which is a little bit outside of the scope of what we're talking about today. So, for our purposes today, really specifically, the Tree of Life.
Mm-hmm.
And thirdly, the Kabbalistic dabblers engage in various exercises with which diligent students connect everything in the universe with everything else until there is no anything left. And there are sort of three principles to that. Everything in heaven and earth is connected to everything in heaven and earth. Everything in heaven and earth is a reflection of everything in heaven and earth. This sounds really familiar. This sounds like as above, so
Mm-hmm.
below. The author expands on this second point. He says, you are smack dab in the middle of a ribbon of repeating patterns stretching infinitely toward macrocosmic immensity in one direction
Mm.
and infinitely towards microcosmic smallness in the other. As above, so below. If we study the tiny subject, we simultaneously study its giant counterpart and vice versa. And I wanted to share that because to me, if we study tarot, we're studying the universe, right? Same with astrology.
Mm-hmm.
And the third sub principle is everything in heaven and earth contains the pattern of
Mm.
everything in heaven and earth. Look hard enough at anything, and you will eventually see everything.
Mm.
There are practices that, or there are exercises, I guess is the correct word, that facilitate this kind of matching everything until there's nothing left. And that also is a little bit beyond the scope of what we're talking about today. But I loved those three principles that everything is connected, a reflection of, and contains the pattern of,
Mm-hmm.
especially because it really aligns with the theme of as above, so below, that has kind of carried itself across a lot of our episodes in talking about tarot and astrology. So it felt really relevant, but we might dig into those exercises in a future episode. The author of this book refers to them as games. So could be kind of fun. All right. So I love this. The author in this one section of the book refers to God as the dude of dudes.
Mm.
um, Because it is a lighthearted book. So he says the dude of dudes created the universe with the help of three imaginary friends, numbers, letters, and words, in 32 mysterious paths of wisdom. They consist of the 10 Sephiroth out of nothing and of 22 letters. So that's how we get the 32 mysterious paths. The 10 Sephiroth are the spheres on the tree of life, and then the 22 letters, of course, of the Hebrew alphabet. Mr. Duquette explains that the deity, or the dude of dudes, divided the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet into three divisions. There are three mothers or fundamental letters. There are 7 double letters and 12 consonants. And spoiler alert, this is the chart that I made. So if you go to our Substack, you'll see it. There are, coincidentally or not, 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet and 22 major arcana cards. So naturally, my chart has the 22 Hebrew letters and their corresponding major arcana tarot card. Mr. Duquette says that the 22 major arcana cards are the visual expressions of the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet and their esoteric meanings, which is so cool.
Mm-hmm.
Mother letters correspond, there are 3 of them, so they correspond also to the 3 primitive elements, in addition to a major arcana card. The 7 double letters, in addition to a major arcana card, correspond to one of the 7 traditional planets. And there's 12 simple consonants that also correspond to the 12 zodiac signs, which is all in the chart I made. And because we are in Libra season, I will use Libra as our example. So to back up, Libra corresponds to the Hebrew letter Lamed, which is the pseudonym, the rabbi who wrote this book, the Chicken Kabbalah, of Rabbi Lamed Ben Clifford. Lamed, the English letter is L. It can carry the meaning of teacher, which I think is why this pseudonym rabbi
Mm-hmm.
has that in his name. It can mean teacher. The letter meaning, I think Christina said it in our podcast, is ox goad. And a goad is a pointy stick or other instrument used to prod something along. And it is essential for making things leap into action. So in my chart, I have the Hebrew letter itself, Lamad, the English letter equivalent, L, the Hebrew letter meaning, ox goad, and then the astrological correspondence is the zodiac sign Libra. And as we know, listeners, the corresponding major arcana card is Justice. It lines up perfectly. The other 11 simple consonants are laid out in the exact same way. The 7 double letters, again, correspond to, instead of a zodiac sign, one of the 7 traditional planets, which is all laid out as well. And then the mother letters or fundamental letters correspond to a primitive element, and those are air, water, and fire. And sometimes with fire, you'll see spirit. So I
Mm-hmm.
included that as well, fire and spirit. But I mean, it just
I like
works
the
out neatly.
I've seen a few different charts. I love your chart. a lot because it's geared towards what you and I are talking about. Listeners, this is a fantastic chart for astrology and for tarot and tying it all together. I like how you have it divided up with the 3, the 7, and the 12. I've had them as like just a list, and I'm like, why are some planets and why are some zodiac signs? So to see it this way, oh, it's fantastic because it's another way to organize it in my head. I love that the first 3, Alf, Mem, and Shin, are air, the Fool, water, the Hanged One, and fire, Judgment, because that's like the beginning, the middle, and the end. The Fool, the beginning, the Hanged One, the middle, and Judgment, the end. It's kind of like a little mini Fool's journey. Do you know what I mean? Like the big steps that we make. So I like that those are like together. And the planet ones are fantastic. I want to do another one that Resh R, meaning head or face, and it's the sun, and the card is the sun. And sometimes it's like a perfect like connection like that. But then He or P is mouth, that's Mars and the tower. And you can see how that energy and that action of Mars, and then the mouth, you think about that power of, the energy of speaking, or the energy of like the voice, and tied to the tower. So this is a fascinating correlation to make, listeners. And this chart is fantastic. Go look at it on Substack. I'm telling you, it's fun to look at them laid out this way in this organization. It helps me understand everything better.
Yeah, I had to make my own chart because, like I mentioned, each Hebrew letter has a number value too. And a lot
Mm-hmm.
of the charts that I came across had had the letters organized in
Like
ascending order.
alphabetical, right? It's like they're
Yeah.
alphabetical. I've seen it their number, and I've seen it from the Fool to the world. I've seen, what I mean?
Hmm.
I've seen those, but I like it like this for another way of understanding. I could just sit there and just look at this and just keep like talking about it.
I will say just one more quick thing.
Yeah.
And this comes from Mr. Duquette, but he suggests, as a Kabbalistic dabbler, getting familiar with the Hebrew letter meaning. So for justice, for Libra, that being ox goad, because that can help inform your readings even more so and just give you more layers of meaning and
Mm-hmm.
interpretation to work with. And he, again, I literally laughed out loud at several points reading this book, but he was like, it'll also make you seem kind of smart and people will take you more seriously as like a tarot reader if you kind of like know your stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I know he kind of said it with this attitude of jest, but he makes a solid point. If you want to be taken seriously and respected as a astrologer or tarot reader, it is to your benefit to know the history and to know these correspondences and to have this understanding. Um, and it feels overwhelming at first,
Mm-hmm.
but I definitely see his point that it's worth the time and the effort and the study, even as a Kabbalistic dabbler.
Yeah. I agree. I'm looking at the number values, and I'm looking forward to our podcast on numerology. When we're going to learn more about the single digits, the double digits, and the triple digits. And that's another column in your chart that I'm just like, oh, I don't know anything. I can't wait to know more about that. There's always another column, listeners. I want to touch on the Kabbalistic tree of life. We've talked about the 10 Serovt, the 10 emanations of divine, of source. The tree of life is central to Jewish mystical, or is a central Jewish mystical symbol. I've seen the tree of life on charts with other sacred geometry shapes. Again, another podcast we need to do, sacred geometry. The tree of life represents the unfolding of God into creation. It's also a spiritual path of the human soul. It illustrates a connection between the infinite source and the physical world. If you're looking at the tree of life, the circle at the bottom is closest to us, and the circle at the top is closest to the divine. It can serve as a map because the pathways are all given assignments and meanings and tarot cards as well. It's a map for understanding the universe's structure and achieving spiritual growth, finding that repair. The Sephiroth, the 10 divine emanations, are the 10 spheres or nodes. The Ein Sof flows to manifest in between, around, and through the spheres. I thought to myself, well, before I get there, it shows the cosmic and spiritual journey, not just of the creation of the universe, because as Nicole just said, between infinite largeness and infinite smallness, and that as above, so below, one of my lectures used the word mirror. Mirror, mirror, mirror. The tree of life mirrors us. There's a mirror of the tree of life in our human body. There's a mirror of the tree of life above us and below us. It depicts the process of creation as divine energy descends and condenses into the physical universe. But it also provides a pathway for the soul, getting closer and returning to divine source by understanding and internalizing those qualities of the Sephiroth, those emanations of the divine, which we haven't even said yet. That's got to be a whole nother podcast, just breaking down the tree of life, right? We'll have a picture. Well, Nicole and I will find a good picture that we both like for the tree of life with the Hebrew and English of the 10 spheres on it, so that you can see, because I can say them, but you really kind of need to see them so that you can see what's closest to us and then what's closest to source. So the tree of life has a purpose. It's to understand the divine. It's for our development as humans. It's for that concept of tikkun, to repair, that through our actions, we can repair the damage and the evil done in the world through its creation. And it's also the connection between worlds. And it doesn't get more metaphysical than that, right, listeners? Because that is the one thing that we talk about all the time, that our mind makes our reality, and our reality mirrors what's in the other realms. And it just lets us understand that we have power to grow and to change and to learn. And this is another tool to do that. This is another way that you may find that you relate, that you understand, that this makes more sense to you than looking at the hero's journey specifically. Like we just did the podcast on the hero's journey that was broken down by, Joseph Campbell and the mythology of it. Maybe that doesn't vibe with you, but this does. It's another way to connect. I have one final note, and I want to do a whole podcast just on this concept of skina. That is God's presence, or the divine presence in this physical world. And 2 lecturers that I listen to on YouTube, and we'll list them. We'll give you guys, links, and we'll find a way to make sure you can listen to the people that I listen to. And the lecturer said that skina, that presence of God in this world, is the divine feminine. It is a yin quality. It is a feminine quality. And that is as far as I can go into that for the scope of this podcast. I started to go down a path, and I was like, I need to stop. I was telling Nicole before we hit record, I have to stay on script. This topic is so big and so broad, and I care about it so deeply. I get very excited when I talk about this, and I just don't have the depth of knowledge yet to really say what I mean to say about it. You know what I mean? It's a new topic to me, and I feel like I'm in just like receive mode. I'm just like learning mode. I want to learn what everything means. I want to learn the history of it. I want to find out about all these ancient authors who put all this information together. I even looked up the Golden Dawn again, and why did the Golden Dawn layer this with tarot? And I don't even know, and I might I don't know. I don't even know if they're the first ones to have done it or if they're the first ones to do it in the English speaking world. I think there's more history there that we can look up, or do we have to? Do I need to know exactly when it happened? I mean, my Sagittarius moon wants to know that, but I really don't need to know. The fact is that someone saw it, put it together, and now we have it, listeners. Now we have this information. We have these charts and we have the knowledge. I don't have to know when it happened and where it happened. I need to grow in a deeper understanding of what it means to me today. That's what I need to focus on when I get excited about big ideas. What does it mean to me today? And that's what I'm excited to keep talking about the tree of life, to keep talking about the Hebrew letters as we're going through the zodiac. And now we have a beautiful chart to just like do a quick reference and just see exactly how it all fits in.
Yeah, this topic definitely has so much more depth. And yeah, it's like, did the 22 major arcana cards get created because of the 22 Hebrew letters, or was it a coincidence? Like, I would love to know more about the history there. And I'm sure as we continue our
Mm-hmm.
studies,
We'll find more.
we'll find more information and, of course, share
I had
things
a
with
I had a thought. I almost said which came first, the chicken or the egg, as I
me
was
too.
talking about
Me
like
too.
the Golden Dawn putting it together in the English speaking world. That didn't mean that these concepts hadn't been put together like years ago in France and in Spain and in Italy. So I thought about your book. I'm like, is that what her book is? The chicken? Is it like like but that was kind of like what I was thinking of. It's like we're trying to figure out what came first. And that's good. It's good to know like general outlines, but I don't have to know all the tiny details on this.
I had that literal same thought. I thought chicken
Mhm.
or the egg, and I was like, that's kind of cheesy for me to say because my book is called The Chicken
Yeah.
Kabbalah. And it's not that phrase, that expression is not how the book got its name.
That would have been
Um,
my guess as we're talking about like what how did these come together? When did they come together? I mean, I might find a text that I believe and that we both, really understand, but the fact is we might not actually find out definitively when that happened, and that's okay. That's okay with me. I'm
and there might not
enjoying.
be an answer, and that would be almost more appropriate, right?
Mhm.
Okay, the Oracle of Pluto. I have been so obsessed with this deck since I bought it like 5 days ago. The first card, I drew three. The first card is for everybody. And the first card was actually at the bottom of the deck. In this guidebook, the author writes that one suggestion for using this deck is to make the card at the bottom of the deck the significator for the reading. Because it's at the bottom, it's like the most hidden card. So it's like the shadow archetype that's kind of governing the reading. So the first card is for everybody, and then you can pick card two or three for your personal. message. So the first card is Eagle, the spiritual messenger, protection, the bigger picture. To see the elusive eagle in real life is rare and fleeting. Those who are lucky enough to behold this majestic creature know of its unique wonders. Just like the hawk, the great eagle is revered as a divine creature, one that is rich in deeply spiritual symbolism. Nothing flies higher in the sky than an eagle. Because of this unique vantage point, the eagle brings with it an important perspective, one that can only be achieved from a certain level of enlightenment and understanding. It also brings along an important message, and the other cards around it give it context to that message. If you've pulled the eagle by itself, this is a sign that you are the spiritual messenger and you are being encouraged to share the wisdom, skills, and knowledge you possess. Perhaps there is a leadership role you're being asked to step into, or a community that you could serve. Often, and especially in spirituality, we are both the student and the teacher. Where do you embody both roles? Consider also how eagles are sacred across many cultures and sects of belief, often revered as a fierce symbol of divine wisdom and protection. It is possible that the arrival of this card means a shield is around you now. Trust that you are divinely protected. Further reflection. Eagles are often representatives of the Great Spirit. You would be hard-pressed to find anyone who views crossing paths with an eagle to be a bad omen. On the contrary, there seems to be a universal agreement that seeing an eagle is a great gift, regardless of creed, religion, or dogma. This inexplicable knowing is an example of the concept of the superconsciousness, the belief that as humans, we all have a collective well of knowledge and wisdom that can be tapped into. Perhaps now you can draw upon this same communal knowing. Card 2, Tiger. Carnal desires, opulence. The real tiger has inspired both awe and fear in humans across centuries. It is often admired and desired for its beautiful coat, fang-like teeth, and deadly claws. If you've ever been in the presence of the mighty tiger, it's easy to understand why. Everything about a tiger feels carnal, powerful, and full of desire. You too embody this eros if you pull this card in a reading. There is a hunger that exists within all of us. What is it that fuels the beast inside? It may be a person, place, a thing. If you feel this hunger churning, it's time to feed. Our passions can be an incredible primordial force of power that we can use to embrace deep fulfillment and pleasure. Alternatively, you may be in the incredible flow of luxury and abundance. Regardless, something there is a deep, tangible pleasure calling out to you now. Initiate yourself into its mysteries. Look to the other cards around the tiger for clues. Further reflection. What is your relationship to pleasure? Where do you feel it in your body? When was the last time you intentionally cultivated and engaged with it? Eros is a Greek word that describes the ways in which we express our physical passion and desire. It is also an asteroid in astrology that we can look to for help in unlocking this expression and fulfillment. This asteroid can be located through many different online astrology sites. Locate yours and then invite Eros energy in through anything that feels erotic and delicious. And our third and final card is the Hermit Crab. Necessary withdrawal, introspection, exploration of the inner landscape, and growth. The tiny hermit crab scuttles along the ocean floor, ready to strike out and explore the surrounding environment. Despite its name, this crustacean isn't much of a hermit. That said, thanks to a trusty seashell home, this busybody knows when it's time to retreat inside. When the energy of the hermit crab has arrived in a reading, a certain withdrawal from the outside world is imperative. This card is a call to explore our inner landscape in search of answers, rather than search for them in an outside source. When we are growing, we often reach a milestone in our journey that requires us to take a step back and pose questions to ourselves. If we rely too heavily on the opinions of others, these influences can drown out our own inner voice. To remain true to ourselves, a certain amount of alone time is required to let that voice have room to speak up. For those of us who commit to the spiritual journey in a serious way, the energy of this card probably feels familiar. As much as we can learn from others, the spiritual path is ultimately one we walk alone. Carve out some time for yourself and see what wisdom rises to the surface. You might surprise yourself. Further reflection, we all possess the potential for spiritual gifts. Unlike in the movies, however, the messages we receive from spirit through these psychic senses are incredibly subtle, almost a whisper. Sometimes we are present enough to grab hold, and other times the messages pass us by. Many mediums and psychics know this and spend as much time as they can away from screens and the countless distractions and noise from everyday life. Now is the time for you to learn the value of silence. When you cut out the static of everyone else, what inner wisdom and extrasensory experiences make themselves known? Thank you, universe. That
Thank you,
one reminded me
universe.
so much of the Four of Swords.
I like that part, how it said people who, like mystics, know to keep themselves away from distraction. You know, that you can feel the difference when you're in tune and when you're out of tune.
Yes.
But you have to be in tune. Anyway, our body can help us. Our body, like when we were doing justice, one of my cards had the human body as the scales, the Vitruvian man. We just talked about the mirror and as above, so below, in the mirror of the tree of life in our bodies. And the fact is that we can feel in our bodies justice and injustice. So we can feel when we are in tune and we can feel when we're out of tune, but we have to give ourselves a chance to get there. So you've got to like get away from the distractions so you know what it feels like to be focused. If you're always distracted, you don't have a concept of like what you need to get to get into that place of calmness and peace, and connecting with the connecting with the crown chakra and meditation and quietness and stillness. It's like we have
Yeah.
to practice that. We have to practice that. Just like we have to practice our yoga postures, we have to practice being quiet, being still.
Yeah, for sure. It is a practice. What awesome messages.
Yes.
This was a great episode. I'm so glad
Oh,
we did it. And next week, we are back with our fourth and final Libra episode, the planet Venus, before we transition into Scorpio season.
oh yeah, I'm ready for it.
We'll talk to you then, listeners. Thank you. We love you. Bye.
Bye. Thank you for listening to this episode. The Radical Podcast is created and produced by Nicole and Christina.
Music by Van Horton. His Instagram is Van Horton Music. Stay in touch with us at linktr.ee/theradicalpodnc.